All right. Chris is not able to be here at the moment. He's running late, so I'll get us started. Happy New Year. Great to see everyone. Thanks for attending. Welcome to the Governor's Task Force on Broadband Access. Today is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. I would just like to remind everyone that this is a public meeting and that it is being recorded. The meeting agenda is available on the Public Service Commission events calendar and also on the task force webpage. Also, in an effort to maintain audio quality, please mute yourself when not speaking. I also ask that any members of the public be mindful of their audio and remain muted throughout the duration of the meeting, other than during the public comment period. I'll go ahead and do roll call for those members of the Governor's Task Force on Broadband Access. Bob Abrams, Biko Baker, Kwame Barnes.
Here.
Thank you, Kwame. Marta Bechtel.
Here.
Thank you, Marta. Good to see you. Brittany Beyer.
Here.
Thank you, Brittany. Sal Carranza.
Here.
Thank you, Sal. Lori Collins.
Here.
Thank you, Lori. Angie Dickinson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Angie. Good to see you. Emily Dittmar. She let me know she might not be able to make it, so we'll see if she jumps on later or not. I'll keep an eye on it for that. Russ Falkenberg.
Here, Mark.
Thanks, Russ. Chris Hershon. Gail Hike.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Gail. Barbara Koldos.
Hi, Mark. I'm here.
Hey, Barbara. Good to see you. Chris Meyer. Already let you know he's running late. State Senator Mark Liner staff. Jose Martinez.
Here.
Hey, Jose. State Representative Mersaw staff. All right, he let me know he wouldn't be here, but he said his staff might attend, so I'll keep an eye on that. State Representative Ratcliffe or staff. State Senator Path or staff.
Here.
Thank you. Mike Rave.
Here.
Thanks, Mike. Rachel Shemlin.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Rachel. Steve Schneider.
Here.
Thank you, Steve. Michelle Schuler let me know she wouldn't be in attendance today. Brett Schupner.
Here.
Hey, Brett, long time no see. Josh Shell.
Here.
Hey, Josh, thank you. Chet Strebe.
Here.
Thank you. And Chad Young.
Here. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. I do not believe I missed anyone, but if I did, could you please let me know? No, okay. Before we go into public comment, we have a new task force member and a new facilitator. So I'll kick it over to Mike Rave to give an introduction to himself and then kick it over to Jessica Beckendorf afterwards. So go ahead, Mike.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Rave. I am the Executive Director of Administration for the Ho-Chunk Nation. I am in an appointed position. Prior to this posting, I was the Chief Information Technology Officer for Ho-Chunk Nation. Following my appointment, I will actually be returning as the Chief Information Technology Officer. I've been with Ho-Chunk Nation for 25 years, largely with the Department of Administration, with one previous appointment as the Executive Director of Business. I have been in the world of IT for many decades. Brief history is with in the military, I was an Intel analyst, working with data and things like that. And then I was also working in weapons systems in the military, and that's where I had the bulk of my primary exposure to IT, working on guided weapons systems and servers and computer networks and things like that. Outside of that, I have a bachelor's in criminal justice with an emphasis in cyber crimes, computer crimes, and then my master's is in business administration with an emphasis on information technology management. Let's see here. Our work with broadband is actually getting quite extensive here at Ho-Chunk. So we've actually got tentative approval waiting for our NTIA application, in which case, successful award, we've got broadband deployment projects scheduled for Jackson County, Sauk County, Juneau County, Shawano County, and I'm missing a county in there somewhere. And those are multi-million-dollar deployment projects that are all going to be scheduled for concurrent build-out for really the most rural areas that we have. And we've been partnering quite well with our county counterparts, most notably with Jackson County. I do sit with the Jackson County Broadband Task Force. I'm also on the Wood County Broadband Task Force, Sauk, Juneau, Monroe. I also participate in their broadband task force meetings and initiatives. Outside of that, getting to the plant knowledge side of things, my wife and I actually own Falls Florist and Greenhouse here in Black River. We've been doing that for the better part of 6 years now. Just lucky to actually make sure that it stays family owned. Falls Florist has been family owned since 1929, so we're more than happy to keep that in the community and keep it going. And a lot of improvements there over the years. Just a complete refresh from when it was originally reconstructed in 1969. So outside of that, that's me in a nutshell. Mark, I did get word I do need to go to legislative session. So if it's okay with you, I'll bounce out, go do that, and then come back to this meeting.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So for anybody with flower knowledge, contact Mike.
So I'll just leave this up and running, leave it muted.
Yep, mute yourself, turn off your screen if you like, and then I'll kick it over to Jessica Beckendorf now to introduce herself, new facilitator or returning facilitator.
Yeah, returning. I'm really excited to be back. Hi, everyone. Jessica Beckendorf. I have been on the extension broadband team since January of 2023, but I actually, some of you might remember me from the first year of the task force. I was brought in as facilitator and worked very closely with Brittany Beyer, who was the chair at the time, in 2020. So I worked with you all in 2020, 2021 for whoever was here then. I'll do a real quick background. So I've been in the community development space for way longer than I probably should admit at this point. I started out in GIS and community planning and moved into economic development and then came to extension. So I've really kind of had a big kind of breadth of experience. I've really found broadband, the broadband world and broadband expansion to be a very exciting area to be in right now, and kind of makes use of all of my skills, including facilitation. So I really enjoy facilitation, and I'm open to suggestions at any time from anyone. So please do feel free to reach out if you have questions. That's all.
Thank you, Jessica. Now is the time where we will allow for public comment. This is the sole opportunity for the members of the public to make a comment during this meeting. Members of the public may soon unmute and make a public comment should they desire. I do ask that the public comment remain brief and also pertain to the subject of broadband access. You may also utilize the chat function in Zoom to let us know you would like to make a public comment as well. I will ask for public comment now.
Good afternoon, Mark. My name is Ramsey Lee, and I'm a person with disability. Thank you for what your task force does. I, I'm, I'm here today to just echo the need for broadband in northern Wisconsin. I know I have four friends of my Trigo, and they have a hard time getting access. And then the other part of my role is I'm a citizen with cerebral palsy, so just invite, inviting you all to engage with the disability community. We read your accessibility plan. That looks good to me. Unfortunately, it wasn't a screen reader accessible, so people that were blind or visually impaired had a hard time reading it. But if you can work with Department of Health Services or the Physical Disability Council, that'd be great. We'd love to have you attend our meetings. So thanks for having me. I'm just here to listen, and I'm here as a private citizen today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the comment, Ramsey. We'd happy to attend those meetings. Just feel free to reach out, and thanks for the comment. I believe there was another comment in the chat from Mike. What do you believe the future of BEAD will be going forward, 2005 beyond? Will these monies be pulled back? That is a great question. I think I'm going to kick it over to Alyssa to address that one. You want to address that one, Alyssa?
Hey, Mark, we've got a little presentation coming up on beads, so maybe that'll be a
there we
good time
go.
to just go over some of that.
There you go. Yep, sounds good. There you go, Mike. Second call for public comment. And last call for public comment. As a note, written public comment is also accepted on an ongoing basis. We have direction on how to do so on our task force webpage, along with other information like meeting agendas, recording, and updates. And now I'm going to kick it over to Alyssa and Rory to get us an agenda with PSC updates.
Thanks, everybody.
We can see the slides.
Oh, good. I know they're a little. So, hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Happy New Year. We're just, we know there's been a little gap between meetings, and we just wanted to give you kind of an update about some of the work that's happened in the state of Wisconsin, and particularly here at the commission. So the biggest news is BEAD. And so BEAD, for folks who need a refresher, as part of that bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed in 2021. It stands for Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. The state of Wisconsin was allocated just over $1 billion. And so BEAD, I saw the question, just to maybe reference the question that was entered during public comment. BEAD is part of a law that, was enacted, signed by the president. Obviously, there's a new administration, new Congress, and so the Congress always sort of has the opportunity to change guidance, to update the leadership at different agencies, but it's very unlikely that laws that were passed in previous years will get sort of undone. So we consider these dollars are not just allocated to the state, but they're obligated to the state through, contractual grant agreements and all the other states. And as maybe you've seen, some states have even made it through sort of final approval. So, of course, things can always change in government and in the world, but there's not particularly any specific imminent risk of BEAD dollars being, it would have to be clawed back from the state of Wisconsin. So I don't want people to think that that is likely to happen or that there's any clear pathway or that anyone has made any announcements like that. So so BEAD, again, internet for all. And this is really what the staff and the broadband office has been working on for really the past 2 years, but very, very deeply the last 6 months. And so just a few updates. And again, a couple of the roles. PSC, we do the allocation, the reviewing, the scoring, and we select the recipients. Sub-grantees are the folks that build, own, and operate the facilities. And then NTIA, which is part of the Department of Commerce, basically they administer the funds at the federal level. They make sure we're in compliance. I see Kara's at least listening in today and here. She's our federal program officer for the state of Wisconsin. And maybe it's a sad piece of news for me. We now share her with the state of Minnesota too. We're the nicer state, right? So BEAD update. If folks remember last spring, we did what was called this BEAD challenge. And so you take kind of the base map from the FCC, and then you give the state and the public and local governments and certain nonprofit agencies the opportunity to challenge and then rebut a challenge and then adjudicate. So we ran this sort of complex 30 day challenge process. Our challenge process was approved on November 19th or on November 12th. One of those 2 days, but in November, our challenge process results were approved. And so that means sort of our final list of locations that are eligible for BEAD in the state of Wisconsin were confirmed by NTIA. And that number is 206,715. The other big piece we are waiting for that happened this fall is what's called Volume 2 at BEAD. And so BEAD had sort of 2 components that had to be approved by NTIA. One is Volume 1 in that challenge, and the other is our sub-granting process. And so that was Volume 2, and that approval came at the end of July. Very quickly after the commission received that approval, we opened what was called a letter of intent. And so BEAD, unlike some other grant programs you might be familiar with, has some gatekeeping. People have to show that they have the technical, fiscal, managerial, and operational capacity to participate before they can apply. And so the commission opened up that letter of intent on August 1st. We closed it on October 1st. First week of January or so, we announced sort of all the approved LOI applicants. And then, very exciting, on January 13th, we opened our first BEAD grant round. And with that, I think I'm going to pass it to Rory to talk a little bit more about what the future holds now.
Thanks, Alyssa. I did just drop in chat if you want to peruse the approved participants in our BEAD program. I just dropped that little letter in chat. So where have we been? Where have we going? You might remember this little timeline here. We are creeping our way along it down the waterfall. We're now in this navy blue section in the middle called sub-grantee selection process. So a little more detail on the next slide, but really what we're trying to do now is identify the best internet service provider to build the best infrastructure for the lowest available cost and the best quality in any given one of these 206,000 locations. And we're going to spend the next several months doing that. It's really a sprint to the finish here. The expectation from NTIA is that we will finalize that list and determine all of our participants and who will be funded and what locations will go to each provider by the end of July is when we will submit what we call the final proposal. So what that looks like on a day-to-day basis here is kind of broken down in a very mushy timeline. It's mushy because it's really hard to anticipate how long some of these steps are going to take until we're really in the thick of it. So we're currently soliciting applications for probably the largest and most complex of our several rounds of granting, which is round 1. We started that only a week or so ago. That will go through the end of February, and then we will spend a good chunk of March parsing through those, scoring those, determining preliminary winners for a subset of awardees, And then immediately, once we have those round one awardees determined, we'll jump into kind of a round two in March. And that'll conclude probably by end of March, early April. We'll complete round two, and then we enter into this kind of more cleaning up the stragglers process we call round three, where we will spend some time negotiating with providers. Maybe if there's a couple straggler locations on the edge of a project, we will kind of bring those into an existing awarded project. We'll go seek out some alternative technologies, unlicensed fixed wireless and low Earth orbit satellite. In some cases, if there's just some really far-flung areas that are not well served by your wireline connection, or we couldn't find anyone, and then kind of just really cleaning up that puzzle and filling in all those gaps so that by July, we can put out kind of a public comment version of our entire allocation process and the results, and get that out to our commission for approval, and then to NTIA by the end of July. So kind of a month-to-month map here. I think, there's a big highlighted estimated at the top. The goal here is to move quickly through this process, but any individual piece might ebb and flow a little bit depending on how things go, and we just don't know. We might have 1,000 applications in round one, which might take longer to review, but more participation makes our job easier on the back end. So it just depends exactly how the time plays out as we go. So I know Alyssa talked about the 206,000, but I'm a mapping guy. I like maps. So here's what it looks like across the state of Wisconsin. Right now, the purple points are points in Wisconsin locations. Probably everyone here on this call is on a purple point. You are well served. You do not need BEAD funding. There's black triangles. Those are the locations that are in progress from any number of grant awards. For example, down in Southwest Wisconsin here, there's a big slab of enhanced ACAM, which is an FCC funded program. And I'll shout out to Angie Dickinson. TDS has that kind of allocation in that area of the state. So it's in progress, so it does not need BEAD funding. And any number of other state administered grants that we've given over the last couple of years, also all over the place. Lastly, there's those orange shots. Those are the places that we are targeting with BEAD. Northwest Wisconsin, Southwest Wisconsin, Central, East, Northeast, everywhere in Wisconsin has a little bit of this. And those will be what we're targeting over the next couple months. So I know we spend lots of time talking about how we're going to spend the money. And I think one key thing to remember, and we really have made a lot of headway on this since we saw you all last, is defining our project units, which is a simplified way to figure out how to allocate funding. So, if we went out and put all 206,000 locations on eBay and said, hey, what will you guys accept for funding to build these locations? It would become a big mess very quickly and difficult for providers to design projects around, and also difficult for us to administer. So we sat down and grouped these locations into what we call project units, which are groups of points. I think the median project unit is about 80 or so locations. And the goal here was to group points into logical little packages that would typically be built together, and then offer those up for bid. So any given provider in our process can say, hey, I'd like to build this project unit or these several project units as a combination, and then that would be a funded project, and that would simplify both for them and for us, the administration and allocation of funding. So a couple key concepts for our project units: they're points, they are not areas, so it's individual locations grouped together. On this map, you will see kind of this hex shape. That's just kind of a visual representation of where project units are. So for example, in the northwest corner here, there's kind of a light purple and then a dark blue. Those are kind of two different project units right next to each other. They don't cross hard boundaries. So, on this example here, Forest County, Potawatomi, and Secaucus are both represented kind of in this map, but you see particular tribal areas are separated into their own project units. Project units never cross county boundaries. They also, for the most part, don't cross railroads. So simplify a lot of permitting and engineering and challenges related to railroad crossings. Yeah, so that's a little overview on project units. I think if you want, you can see this map online. Happy to link that in chat as well. But really, the next couple months will be divvying out these project units to the best offer we can get to find a solution for internet access. So I think that's all for BEAD. I will now pass it to Alyssa to talk about digital connectivity and navigators.
Yeah, I will say just amazingly, the heavy and fun lift that BEAD has been in our office. We also have two other big things that have sort of happened uh, since we last met. The commission had already announced this. It's called Capital Projects Fund. It's part of ARPA, but it's not part of the American Rescue Plan Act funding that most people are familiar with, which is the local and fiscal recovery funds. This is a sort of a separate pool of funding from those. But the state had allocated some for broadband grants and some for these digital connectivity and navigators grants. And so those grants were basically to deploy digital devices, install Wi-Fi, and so it has to have the devices or the Wi-Fi and do digital navigation, which has long been kind of a priority of this task force and a key recommendation. So it was really nice to see us able to open a grant round that had one of those task force recommendations kind of embedded in the activities. Funding was prioritized to underserved, underconnected, and low-income households that were disproportionately affected by COVID-19. This was part of that American Rescue Plan Act and kind of COVID response dollars. And so we accepted applications. And then back in September, the commission awarded 11 projects, $27.8 million. And so a really states across the country did these connectivity and navigator grants, but Wisconsin had one of the sort of larger dollar amounts towards these grants. So really a significant amount of funding. In total, if these projects all go according to plan, we'll have 44,000 devices deployed, another 3,600 houses with access to Wi-Fi, and 42,000 people that get digital navigation services over the next 2.5 years. And so just tremendously exciting, and another grant process that's really moving the needle on some task force recommendations and some of those sort of softer things that support adoption and affordability. Also, and I'm sorry, everything has kind of a similar name in this world that makes it hard. This is the other half of the digital, the Internet for All. So Internet for All is kind of the umbrella in the bipartisan infrastructure law. BEAD is one half. Digital Equity Capacity Grants or Digital Equity Act grants is the other half. In October, the state was awarded our Digital Equity Capacity Grant funding, and that's $13.2 million. And then in December, the commission approved sort of 9.5 million of that to subaward out. And the commission designed basically 2 program tracks, and these are all related to the approved digital equity plan. But the 2 areas that the commission will open grants for digital equity are digital navigators. Again, one of those task force priorities, those kind of high touch, high support to help people really make full use of broadband and the devices and the technology they have. And then digital opportunity coalitions. And the goal of those is to really form a community coalition that involves healthcare and philanthropy and brings sort of all the stakeholders to the table so they can coordinate communications, align resources, and really kind of muster the force of the good things that are already happening in that community to get more digital opportunity for that community. So those grants will open this winter, be reviewed, and then awarded likely late summer, early fall. And so that is kind of the other grant program. So we have BEAD open now, Digital Connectivity and Navigators awarded this fall, and Digital Opportunity Capacity Grant coming this winter. And I think that is the full update of the work from the broadband office. We could pause if anyone has questions, but I know we have other presentations and important talking to do. So I'm going to stop sharing and pass it back over to Jessica.
Yeah, I was just leaving a little bit more of a pause in case someone had questions. So I'm actually going to pass it over to Gail, who I believe is starting our extension presentation.
Yes, thanks, Jessica. I just wanted to thank you all for having us today. This is kind of the extension update of BEAD planning and capacity building. One of the recommendations of the task force was to look at building technical assistance for communities. And extension was given a 2-year contract by the broadband office to help provide some of that technical assistance. So our 2-year contract expired the end of the year, and we thought it was important to let you know some of the work that's been done. I'm not sure who's driving, but thank you.
I got you, Gail. Go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Rory. One of the exciting things that's happened this year is we were able to expand the extension broadband team in 2024. Jessica had mentioned that she had been with our team since 2023. Jessica's role is looking at the partnerships. She spends a lot of time building those partnerships. We were able to add to our team this year, Brittany Beyer. Brittany joined our team in December of 2023, and Brittany came to us with lots of experience in broadband, and as past chair of the Governor's Task Force on Broadband, working with regional economic development and working at a national level, working on some of the grants for broadband. We also gained John Parrish to our team. John is a broadband planning specialist, and John works, he's pretty much our oh yeah. Yeah, I can talk. He's our maps guy, right? GIS. He's our maps guy. Pulls together a lot of things. I'm the general broadband outreach specialist, been a specialist with extension since 2015. Before that, working in the county in broadband and other community economic development work. And Chris Stark is our digital equity outreach specialist. And Chris has been part of our team for a number of years, and then switched to the specialty of digital equity. So that's our team. You can contact our team at any time, but they're the reason we're able to accomplish so many things that they will be helping to share some of those results today. Next one, Roy. So what did our technical assistance look like in 2024? Regional broadband workshops. We actually held 9 regional broadband workshops in the state between March and May this past year. That was an increase from the year before. If you remember, we did 4 the year before. They were 2-day workshops. We decided to realign, do 1-day workshops and match them with the regional economic development organizations. During those workshops, we really took a look at BEAD updates, some spent time on the challenge process, looked at permitting and brought in a number of the agencies on permitting to share some of the things that folks could be working on right now. We spent a lot of time on engagement and endorsement and some peer learning, which have a lot of case studies that we're still in the process of writing up. Then you'll see our webinars and office hours. We had 7 sessions in 2024. Those topics we looked at were building broadband cooperatives with our Center for Cooperatives with Extension. We did 5 sessions on the challenge process with office hours, where the broadband office also played a key role in answering some of those questions. And the last one was held in August, where we looked at using the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands funding opportunities to help where communities could use that funding to help support broadband initiatives in their counties. Our broadband toolkit, we have a number of things in the broadband toolkit, and the broadband toolkit, we actually expanded in 3 different areas. I just dropped the broadband toolkit in the chat, so you can see that and go to our site there. This year, we added pieces on endorsement, a lot on the challenge process. We have a number of pieces on digital inclusion, looking at the nutrition label or for broadband, and a lot of case studies. Beyond that, we had our first tribal workshop, bringing our tribes together, and Brittany will highlight some of the things that happened there. But that was held in November of this year. And then our county and tribal visits and consultations. We do a lot of one-on-ones, also working with individual communities and tribes. Some of those are a one-time thing, and some of our communities we meet with monthly, and some actually almost every week. So those are our main efforts. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John, who's going to hit some of the workshop participation numbers.
Yeah, thinking back to that timeline, Gail, it's amazing how quickly time flies by in 2024. So hello, everyone. I'm John Parrish with the Extension Broadband team. And you're looking at some of the results of our workshops that were conducted in 2024. Of the 450 there, close to 300 of those are accounted for in those regional broadband workshops. With just the regional workshops, with nearly 300 participants and over 30 representatives from internet service providers. In attendance, if you exclude those who either help to staff or to present at the workshop. So for example, we had representatives from Wisconsin Broadband Office, representatives from state agencies. If you look at the attendance there, local government officials accounted for about 37% of attendees. The internet service providers came in at 21%, and then state government at 13%. We had started out in Dodgeville in March. We got off to somewhat of a slow start at the very first one, just about 24 attendees. But then by the time we got rolling, the high point was the workshop that was held in Green Bay in Northeast Wisconsin, 47 attendees there. And another high point attendance-wise was in Hayward, where we had over 40 attendees up in Northwest Wisconsin. That was very encouraging to see that. Next slide, Rory. So on screen are those organizations who helped to make those workshops possible, either by stepping up to be a financial sponsor, or those who developed content and presented at those workshops, or in some cases did both. So for example, the Wisconsin Broadband Office and the Wisconsin Counties Association, who developed some legal advice that was presented at all of the workshops just prior to the permitting section. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation and Natural Resources, as well as in the applicable areas of the state, the U.S. Forest Service, really developed some great content and helped to answer questions that the participants had. Next slide, Rory. And then as Gail mentioned, November 12th, we had the Tribal Nations Broadband Workshop that was hosted by the Moleg Sokogan. And we really appreciate them having everyone visit. We were able to get through some extensive outreach, 9 of the 11 federally recognized tribes to attend those workshops. And in addition to the presentations from the agencies that you see, we had some really great workshop activities in the afternoon session where the participants really laid out what their accomplishments had been thus far, both in broadband deployment and workforce as well. And then we had some exercises to see what should the priorities be, and then tie that to what should the next steps be. And those you will see being presented later on by my teammates. That is a wrap on the workshop summary.
So you can go to the next slide, Rory. So we had a lot of engagement during these workshops, and it shouldn't surprise me that people who are willingly attending a broadband workshop would be engaged in it. And it doesn't surprise me, but we really did get a lot of information from you all. And here are some things that kind of came about. Everyone, of course, this happened during the fall workshops of 2023 as well. Everyone's at a different stage with their planning and with their readiness. Counties began to understand their role in the BEAD process. So engagement versus endorsement. What do those mean? The BEAD timeline was of great concern. There were sample RFPs and endorsement language that were requested. We saw more partnerships with ISPs. And we heard more questions around digital inclusion and the need for funding for digital inclusion. And that counties will need support during the implementation phase. You can go to the next slide. So we asked at every workshop, including the ones in the fall, we asked 3 questions at the end of the workshop. What's one thing you learned today is the first one. And the themes that we heard around this were a lot of people answered this in terms of they learned a lot about the BEAD process and timeline. They learned a lot about endorsement and community engagement. I hope it was a lot. Anyway, they learned a lot about communication and collaboration. And they learned that coordination throughout the process is critical. And, these were some of the goals that we had. We really wanted people to learn these things. So this is really good news. You can go to the next slide. The second question is, what do you plan to do with what you learned? And we heard we had a lot of responses in this space around these 4 main areas: the internal and external sharing and dissemination of information. It's just another way of saying that they planned to share it with their staff, their committees, or with county board members, for example. Engagement and collaboration. They planned to engage and collaborate more with ISPs, with local governments that were nearby, perhaps, and with committees. They commented on how they plan to do more planning and preparation, and that they planned to do more with community engagement and education. So you can go to the next slide. And then finally, we wanted to ask them, like, what's something that we didn't cover that you really wish we would? And what do you want to learn more about in the future? And of course, this is no surprise. They wanted to learn a lot about additional funding and grants. Everyone kind of had a understanding that probably more was going to be needed. They wanted to learn more about project planning, collaboration, educational resources and case studies, regulatory information and compliance procedures, and community engagement and inclusion. You can go to the next slide.
Great. So as was mentioned, we were able to hold a tribal specific workshop in November of last year. Again, I think it's very important to have participation from as many of the tribes in a workshop like that. And we were able to get 9 of the 11 tribes to participate in this first workshop on broadband. I think it's a really great start. I would probably imagine that we learned very quickly that this is going to be a great ongoing partnership, making sure that there's resources that are flowing. What we observed and some of what we already understood, we recognized that the tribes are at different places, and there are differences in how each of the tribes are configured by size, by how they've developed their leadership structures. And so you have to learn how to engage with each tribe, understanding some of those nuances. Specifically on broadband and some of their digital inclusion efforts. The projects are in early stages. So John mentioned that there were a couple of different exercises that we held during the workshop. One was looking at where they are in their broadband network building. Where do they stand on some of those projects? Where do they stand on any of the digital inclusion efforts? Where do they also tie together broadband and workforce development? By and large, a lot of the tribal members felt like they were in the early stages and they could benefit from technical assistance as a lot of those programs stood up. By the end of the day, we really recognized that there was interest in collaboration and cooperation between the tribes. There was a real sense that that was a great way of thinking about some of the resource sharing that could benefit all of the tribes, and just being fiscally responsible. There was also a number of points brought up that, that first comment I made where the tribes are slightly different in construction and what resources that they need, and above all, tribal sovereignty and what that really means in interactions. So they were really looking for some support in making sure that that's understood. The consent process was also something that was brought up. The consent process is specifically something that tribal members are going to need to think through with the BEAD project. But in fact, all broadband network building needs to have consent to build on tribal lands. There was a desire for a better understanding of what that looks like. They also mentioned that it would be really beneficial to have better conversations and communications with the FCC, since a lot of the resources flow from that agency, and we're looking forward to having better relationships with that agency as well. Can you go to the next slide? So just like we did, with the other workshops, we asked the same 3 questions. So the first question was, what was one thing that you learned today? And it kind of echoed what we just described. So there are challenges and differences among the tribes. And because of those different starting points, when the thought of collaborating comes to mind, you really need to think through where each of the tribes can participate to the fullest, who will be taking a leading role inside of that. Those are all things to be discussed in the future, but they were really brought to bear. The resources and support was absolutely something that we really tried to help everyone understand, and it was a learning experience for us as well. The resources and support from federal agencies and who has specific teams that are supporting tribal entities, including the Bureau of Indian Affairs, NTIA, FCC, and their tribal specific resources. It was mentioned that the USTA tends to fund more established ISPs through their processes, even though they have tribal set-asides. So there was interest in understanding that nuance a little bit more. And they were, of course, interested in thinking through how collaboration could benefit everyone as well. Certainly as I said, there are some ways of thinking about resources through collaboration that would be very beneficial. And one of the things that came to light in the workshop is how each of the different agencies can support at different steps of the process. Next slide. The second question is the same. What do they plan to do with what they learned? Collaboration and communication was again something that was very strongly brought up. Making sure that tribal leadership understood broadband connectivity as a priority was a strong message that people were going to be taking back. How broadband support each of the different tribal members was also brought up, just the same as in other communities. If people have access and they don't understand how important it can be to access healthcare and some of the services that are now almost all online, also recognizing that it takes time to build those communication channels. Exploring partnerships was very strongly brought up by the end of that day. There was a desire to think through how there could be some sort of intertribal structure that supported that, because as we know, a lot of work that is done in collaboration needs to have a strong backbone, and developing resources and networks. Again, there's a desire to have a stronger way of working together, maybe even thinking of intertribal telecommunications networks, because each of them are working on their own support services for network building, but how does it look like if they can work together? Next slide. And what do you want to learn in the future? Some of this is similar to what happened in the regional workshops. Education and training was certainly something that was still top of mind. How to use technology to better tribes and individuals who are part of the tribal membership. Cybersecurity training, of course, goes hand in hand with that. Collaboration and partnerships. More questions about what it would look like, because it was just an idea that emerged during that workshop. And they were really looking for more resources, more opportunities, thinking about how some of the tribal set-asides can be used in the future, how to layer some of those opportunities on top of each other. They were really looking for RFPs that had already been established by some of the tribes when they're looking to partner with providers, if that's the way that they were going to approach it. And there was a lot of conversation around cell tower grants and some other resources. And I will hand it over to Chris.
All right. So hello again to everybody. Rory, if you want to forward it. So thank you very much. And so what's next? We've talked about the broadband toolkit a little bit and placed the link to that in the chat. So I would suggest that's a great thing to review, I guess, and I'll do a little teaser here, but since the case studies are also mentioned on this slide, I'll just, some of the case studies here, and I'm right on our toolkit website, are, for example, Oneida County's journey to broadband access. The Ho-Chunk Nation addresses the complexities of delivering broadband across widespread geographic locations. Unlocking Hidden Talent, digital literacy training in the Fox Valley. And another one, Bridging the Digital Divide in Racine, a collaborative approach. And From Frustration to Fiber, Town of Paris's journey to high-speed internet. So just a few examples of those case studies. Now, as a good thing to increasingly, as we're talking about adoption here, increasingly more counties, municipalities, and tribes are waking up, of course, and talking about this. We've been talking about access, and still are, for so many years, and certainly, as you heard today on the public comment, that still remains to be such a challenge. But we're making advancements in the adoption, and by that I mean getting people on, getting everybody on and on board with addressing the affordability and the digital skills issue. And since we have limited time here, I'll just mention quickly that pay attention to some degree to what the city of Racine has done and is doing right now. They have the first local digital equity plan that I'm aware of in the state of Wisconsin that they prepared in conjunction with an outside consultant. They're moving forward and making great advancements in that. You will hear a lot about digital navigators. If you don't know what that is, essentially it's a trusted guide to teach people digital skills. And they're being hired through that Capital Projects Fund grant that Alyssa referenced earlier, through in various locations throughout the state. With the newer grant that's upcoming in March, the State Digital Equity Capacity Grant, you'll be hearing about digital equity coalitions being built throughout the state. Two groups that I'll reference quickly to help increase adoption in the state. Alyssa's had it for the past 4 years. The Wisconsin Digital Equity and Inclusion Stakeholders Group, which meets monthly. And I'm sorry that I had to miss yesterday's, Alyssa. But also recently, Extension, Jessica Beckendorf and I have started a Digital Navigator Network that has begun to meet the first Wednesday of every month. And a small group it is, 13 on the last one, but a passionate group. So the goal is to be a learning forum, if you will, for how do we best address those needs for people to learn more, learn digital skills better. Addressing workshops and webinars here, there will be going forward annual summit workshop from Extension to address whatever the current needs are at that time with respect to the BEAD program, whatever the pressing needs are then. And then we have what we call thematic webinars, and the themes that we'll be addressing are: one, healthcare, tourism, forestry, entrepreneurialism, business category, and an agricultural category. We don't want to limit it to those at that, but that's what we have at this point in time, and will be coming in the future. And you can advance that, Rory, advance one. Thank you. It's appreciated. And so slide 20, which is really our last slide here, is about addressing the gaps. And I guess of the big picture, I call this the teamwork slide. So you have the governor's task force, obviously, with your situation in addressing the gaps, perhaps to inform, if you will, the legislators and the governor's office about what's going on. And you see that the importance of the PSC and the Wisconsin Broadband Office is such a leadership role there. I'm going to get, for the tribal leadership and Glitzy, let me call upon Brittany, Gail, and John for a quick commentary, because I wasn't at I missed the last workshop in Mole Lake just a couple months ago. So if you have a comment that you want to make on that bullet point.
Sure. We certainly feel like part of the that group that's working on broadband is it has to include tribal leaders from each of the tribes. Glitzy, so the Great Lakes Intertribal Collaborative, is a support organization that helps many of those tribes. So we're definitely making sure that we are in communication and collaboration with those groups as we're figuring out what the best solution for broadband for Wisconsin is. I'll pause there.
Okay. Any? Gail? Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Brittany. Much appreciated. The state and local organizations, nonprofits, and agencies. Look, there's so many, and too many for me to name here, because if I start going down that path, I'll neglect somebody. But I will say that on the nonprofits, and I certainly work with United Way, and they are very actively involved in broadband and have been such a valuable player in United Way and Wisconsin literacy in various parts of the state. And as I say, there's many more players that please don't feel slighted if I forget to mention you right now. The ISPs, several of you are on board right now and on this call, and ever so important when it comes to addressing gaps. And then our last bullet point is the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, a very important player in broadband in the Rural Prosperity Office. And the regional economic development offices, I'll also add the regional planning offices as well. As this is our last slide, did we miss anybody? Doing a quick recap. And other than that, then thank you very much. And the team will field questions if you have them.
Doesn't look like there's any questions right now, but I see Chris is on.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
I did drop in the chat also our website. You can visit our website that are in the Community Economic Development extensions page. There's a broadband section. So I have that highlighted there for you that you can see some where we put our newsletters, programs that are coming up, publications, and also a link to our toolkit. If nothing else, we look forward to working with you during the implementation phase where, like Chris said, we have lots of things planned for the next 5 years. So continuing with that technical assistance for counties, tribes, and communities that are seeking additional help. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thanks, Gail. And good afternoon, everyone. Sorry I'm late to the meeting today, but it looks like you've made good progress through the agenda. We're going to move into our group discussion now, which is going to be led by Jessica. And this group discussion is really formative for us today. It's really about trying to understand what our goals should be for this year, as well as what skills and aptitudes we each bring to the table that we could take advantage of to help advance broadband in the state. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jessica to get us kicked off before we go into our breakout rooms.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I mean, it's a new year and, we have at least one new member and it's been a while since we met. So I really wanted to start by kind of grounding us all in, some of you might have seen each other's faces for quite a long time. You might know each other well, but let's actually go around anyway. And I would love for you to share, just remind everyone of your name, your organization, and a strength that your organization or that you bring to the work of the task force. I'll put that in the chat so that it's. So hold on, I'll get us started with first. Is there someone who is willing to kick us off? And from there, I will ask for volunteers name by name.
Sure, I'll do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So my name is Kwame Barnes. I'm the Wisconsin Broadband Lead for CWA, Communication Workers of America. I'm with Local 4603 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But our goal, we have a broadband brigade that has been active in every state. And our goal has been to collaborate by building coalitions and from within and from without with the governor's task force in each state, as well as other organizations and affiliates like the AFL-CIO, other community organizations to get awareness out to about BEAD funding. We also did a lot of groundwork on informing our local senators and public officials about what we're doing and what the governor's task force goals have been, as well as speaking with some White House officials last year to bring about some of the changes that were coming about with the BEAD process and other funding in regards to broadband. So that's kind of been our thing and my thing since I've been on the governor's task force. I've really enjoyed this ride with everybody too. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so my next comment has nothing to do with Kwame. You were the perfect amount of time, but I forgot to mention if you can do it in 45 seconds, 30 seconds or less, Wonderful. And Kwame, you were the perfect amount of time. So this is not any reflection on the update you just gave. Rachel, would you be willing to go next?
Sure. My name is Rachel Shemlin, and I am representing the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction on the task force. And one of the things that we bring to the task force is we provide technical assistance for our school districts and our public libraries. And as anchor institutions, schools and public libraries are great partners and collaborators in this work for building out broadband. We know that digital skills and access to educational materials at home are critical for preparing students for the future. And so that's our lens.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Steve, would you be willing to go next? Steve Schneider?
I had to step out for a second. Steve Schneider, with a couple of different groups, Bug Tussle Wireless, we've been pushing the rural broadband since about 2003. I started the company to work on rural broadband. We also have KES Construction, which we're affiliated with the Union of Operating Engineers. So we work very closely with them on making sure we have the capacity and the workforce that we need. We have put about 2,300 miles of fiber in the last 2-3 years. We operate about 600 towers for cellular and fixed wireless throughout Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. And so, and we've been in it for a while, and have put together a bonding program. So we have quite a number of counties that we have done conduit bonds with, starting with Fond du Lac, and I think we're up to 15 or 16 counties in Wisconsin at this point. Oneida, Outagamie. We've done some one-off that aren't bonds with Brown and Kewaunee and Iowa counties. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you so much, Steve. Gail, would you be willing to be next?
Sure. Gail Hike with UW Extension. And I guess our strength is we're in all of those counties. We're that trusted anchor institution that folks know and are working with. And we work strongly with communities and with tribal communities as well.
Thank you so much. Brett, are you willing to go next? Brett Schupner?
Sure. I'm Brett Schupner, General Manager, Reedsburg Utility Commission. We also operate Lightspeed, which is we're the only municipally owned fiber optic utility, I should say full service ISP in Wisconsin. So we kind of probably bring a little different look on things. We've been pretty aggressive in our rural broadband expansion over the years. So we do electric and water for the city of Reedsburg, but are building out quite a network in rural Sauk County and Iowa County, Juneau County, and Richland County here over the next couple of years. So, and unless Chad's going to correct me here later on, I think we're still the fastest. We provide the fastest standard speed in the state. Our standard speed to our customers is 1 gig by 1 gig. So that's where we start. Thanks.
Thank you. Sal, are you willing to go next?
Sure, I'll go super quick. I started with the task force. The governor appointed me from the beginning. So I've been here for 3 years now. I started as senior policy advisor for the University of Wisconsin system, the president of the board of regents, and I was representing that, but I retired in 2021. So I'm retired, and my current role is I'm on the board of several community organizations, including the Latino Academy for Workforce Development. And that's where I'm representing now, representing that community on their broadband needs. Thank you.
you so much. Uh, Emily Dittmar, would you be willing to go next? Unless I can't see everyone, so I'm doing my best.
I think she dropped off. You might.
Oh, okay, cool. Russ Falkenberg.
Thanks, Jessica. My name is Russ Falkenberg. I'm the CEO of Chippewa Valley Electric Cooperative and president of Intera. Intera is a broadband service provider owned by two cooperatives. We're equal partners, and we do our absolute best to bring reliable broadband via fiber to our most rural members in the surrounding communities, and at the same time staying engaged with state and local government throughout this journey. It's been quite an adventure.
Awesome. And just I saw that Mike came back, and I just want to quick explain what we're doing, and I'm not going to make you go right away. But we are just kind of reintroducing ourselves to each other with our name, organization, and a strength that that you or your organization brings to the task force. So I'd love to have Barbara Koldos go next if she's ready.
I am ready as long as I can find my buttons. Okay, I am here. Sorry about that, Jessica. Hi, everyone. I am Barbara Koldos, and I am with New North. We're a regional economic development organization where we cover the 18 counties of Northeast Wisconsin. Because our mission is to really be a catalyst for regional prosperity for all through collaborative action, that's the strength that we bring to the table. Is we've been involved with broadband since 2020, 2021, and we know that broadband plays a crucial role in this to promote business growth and improving the quality of life of our residents.
Thank you so much. Lori Collins, would you be willing to go next?
Sure. Excuse me. Hi, I'm Lori Collins. I am the co-founder and CEO of SonicNet, which is an ISP located up in Eagle River, Wisconsin. We have been in business since 2007, and we started on a hyper-local level because our community did not have even what you would call high-speed internet. It was strictly dial-up in 2007 or satellite. And so we started out with fixed wireless, and then several years ago, we converted to fiber, and we are only installing new fiber networks at this point. And I bring a small ISP perspective to this board. Some of the things that I do on a daily basis is I communicate and collaborate with towns and tribes in our area. I do the grant writing, and I am what we call in our small group the visionary of the company. So it's my role to basically to dream, which is a really fun thing to do. But it's also my job to find the funding for those dreams. So I kind of get to do both. So anyway, I've been on this board since its inception, and it's really great to see everyone's faces again.
Thank you so much. Marta, would you be willing to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Marta Bechtel. I'm the Executive Director of the Educational Communications Board. We are an independent state agency that is charged with constructing and managing a statewide communications infrastructure. We currently hold 64 FCC licenses around the state that are primarily used to transmit PBS Wisconsin and Wisconsin Public Radio. But we also use our infrastructure for K-12 education, emergency alerting, and within the auspices of our services, we also provide a lot of educational outreach.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I believe there was a person here from State Senator Pfaff's office. Did I say that right? Pfaff or Pfaff?
Yeah, that'd be Dave.
Dave, thank you. Are you willing to go next? If you didn't need to take a break? Okay. How about Jose Martinez? Are you willing to go next? All right. All right, Chris Meyer, I'm going to put you on the spot.
No problem. Happy to be put on the spot. I'm Chris Meyer. I've been on the task force since its inception as well. Originally, I was the director of telehealth for Marshfield Clinic Health System. I was very involved in communities around northern Wisconsin, helping expand broadband really for the purposes of expanding access to healthcare. Since then, though, I've moved over to Royal Credit Union in Eau Claire, where I am the vice president of efficiency and innovation. So my experience is primarily in the northern half of the state, working with communities in both my role in the city and to an extent with my role at Royal. I also served for 10 years as the mayor of the city of Marshfield, which has really got me involved in the need for broadband expansion.
Thank you so much. Angie Dickinson, would you be willing to go next?
Happy to. Angie Dickinson, I'm the State Government Affairs Manager at TDS Telecom. Prior roles that I've had, I was Alyssa's predecessor at the broadband office in Wisconsin. I was also the executive director of the Minnesota Office of Broadband Development. Happy to be with TDS now as we look forward to our enhanced ACAM deployments coming up here. And also a member of the WSTA board, and good to see you all again.
Thank you so much. Now I'm at a point where I need to ask who I'm missing. Chet, is that? Yes, how about?
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Chet Street. I currently serve as the VP of Business and Technology at North Central Technical College in Wausau. We are one of 16 technical colleges in the state. As a higher ed, we are, of course, strong advocates of broadband, especially in the rural areas of our district, where our students and stakeholders have a hard time accessing educational resources. And we will continue to be strong advocates of broadband access, and that's one of the reasons why I am on this task force.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Who am I missing? Have I missed someone?
Chad Young, I can go just.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
You bet. I'm Chad Young. I'm the CEO of Norvato, also known as Shawamgan Communications Cooperative. We're based in Cable, Wisconsin, in Bayfield County. We're a nearly 100% fiber to the home provider, and we've been recently aggressively expanding through acquisitions of Price County Telephone and most recently Choice Tel and Eagle River. Today we serve customers in Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, Price, Sawyer, and Vilas counties. And we offer internet, television, and voice products to our customers. And we'd like to stay very involved in the communities where we operate. I'm very active in our economic development in the area, as well as our chambers of commerce and our schools as well.
Thank you so much. And Brittany Byer. Thank you.
No worries. I don't know if I'm the last, but Brittany Byer, part of the UW Extension team, as understood by the presentation. I was the first chair of the task force on broadband for 2 years, and then went into consulting. As Gail mentioned, Extension has a 72 county reach, which is really important. We are here for educational and technical assistance support. My background is in community and economic development along with broadband, so I'm happy to use all of my resources for this cause.
Thank you so much. All right. Who else am I missing here from the task force? Bob?
Jessica, I'll go next. Bob Abrams, I am recently retired after 15, 17 years as a telecom consultant working for telephone companies. Before that, for about 20, 25 years, I have written a bunch of broadband grants here in the state of Wisconsin and in a few other states. really trying to make sure that the grant writing specialized in or encouraged and was justified by job creation, education, training, health and safety, and first effective use. I am very pleased to hear how far along the Digital Navigator program is. And I think that's an important part of scoring these next rounds of grants, how well that capability can be used and spread broadband effectively. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Mike Rave, I believe, is one that I have not gotten to yet.
Yes. Michael Rave, I'm the Executive Director of Administration for Ho-Chunk Nation. Really don't know where to begin in terms of what we can bring to the table. We have extensive knowledge, detailed work with many technology-related grants, from equipment to fiber, telehealth, education. We really have a robust network here at Ho-Chunk. We've been operating as a closed wide area network with many local area networks spread throughout the state of Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota. We have many IT teams across the state that are replete with engineers, administrators, project management. Yeah, I really, we work with counties, we work with the state, we work with local municipalities. We understand the relationship between any outside entity working with a tribal government. We have those close working relationships with tribal governments. We have our work that we do with GLTC. We do things at the state level regarding legislation. We do things at the federal level. Yeah.
Well, you said I don't know what strengths we can offer, and then you proceeded to list the biggest list of strengths that of anyone who's listed here. So I think you did just fine.
Good.
And you all have a long list of strengths. I know. Okay, who else am I missing? Please help me out here. If you're on the task force and you have not shared yet, please unmute and do so.
Hi, Jessica. I'll go up. I apologize not having my video on. I'm driving home right now from Arkansas from a business trip. I own and president owner of Badgerland Connections. We're an underground utility contractor company based out of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. We're a union contractor. We've been in business for roughly 3 years now, mainly focusing on renewable energy in the solar space, as well as communication work. Particularly the RDOF project has been a big part of our growth. So I'm happy to be able to give my perspective, if you will, from a contractor, and just happy to give all my knowledge that I can to the board.
Thank you so much. All right. One more call. Help me out if you're on the task force and you haven't spoken yet. Please do unmute and reintroduce yourself to everyone.
It looks like everybody, Jessica.
That's what I thought too. I was watching a list despite my pleas for help. Okay, excellent. Boy, you guys, I really appreciate you going through this. We very intentionally wanted to plan out this kind of lengthy introduction just as sort of a grounding activity to reset and get back together, remind each other why we're all here and what we all bring. So next, we have a planned discussion for you in breakout rooms. We're going to have you first talk about, actually probably be easier for me to share my screen real quick. Here we are. Okay. It's not sharing yet. There we go. I do know how to share. So, what we'd love to have you discuss in your breakout rooms is very basically, what would you like the governor's task force on broadband access to achieve in 2025? You all have accomplished a lot so far. The task force has really, I mean, if you've taken a look at the 2024 report, there were a few themes that have been consistently emerging. One of them has been, there's been recommendations under preparing for BEAD. Another one has been recommendations under continued investment of state broadband funding, and then also under affordability and adoption. So you don't have to find things that fit within those themes. You can come up with your own activities. That's why I did not print them out onto a slide, because I wanted you to feel as free as possible as you're in your groups. What I'm going to have you all do is really just concentrate on this left. Is this sharing? It is sharing. Okay, sorry. The little indicator that it was sharing went away. So concentrate first on just this column. What does the task force want to achieve in 2025? Just think about that. And then we'll bring you all back. You'll do a very short report out. And you've got a facilitator for each of your rooms. So there's someone there to help you all, help guide you through it. Any questions about what I'm asking you to do? Just want you to chat with each other about this question. That's all. Okay.
All right, sending everybody into the rooms with the PSE facilitators. Here we go. Let's go with technology. There we go. There they go. And I don't think I forgot anybody. I put you in a room too, Chris. I don't know if it sent you there. Oh, there he goes. Might be difficult for Josh as he's driving.
Yeah. So that was Josh, the one that says Shell?
Yep, Josh Shell. Yep.
Oh, Josh Shell. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Let's see if I can automatically put him in there.
Yeah, because Ellen asked who the last person was, which I believe she was referring to Josh Shell.
There he goes.
Cool. He should be able to talk in the room if that.
Yep.
Hey, Mark, Jessica, do you guys have the link to the slides Alyssa's asking?
Oh, here.
Yep.
Where would you like me to put them?
Check your actually. Check your email.
I just have the extension update slides. I don't have this facilitation slides.
Rory, I'm going to send it to you in private chat.
Cool.
Let's see. Rory, check your chat. No. Yeah, just do it, Jessica.
All right, I got it to Alyssa.
Excellent. Thank you. I could have put the question up at the top of each of these slides.
The Google Doc you did. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, the timer.
Yep, it's automatic. Yep, it's on there.
Mark.
And they'll get the notification.
Incredible. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and thanks, Rory, for sharing the slides. Because again, like I said, last year when I had to share the slides and do that, it disappeared and had to reset everything.
Yeah. Boy, some of the teams are really going to town. Team
And you're going to share
4.
the screen, right?
Yeah, I'll share the screen.
All right.
Yep, I'll go group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. They're adding. Oh no, they're not adding. They're just typing and it's expanding the piece out. I'm just going to oh yeah, you probably have to send me there, don't you? If I could go to group 4 and just let them know that I created something. Will I be able to come back though if I go to group 4? I assume. Yes, I should be able to.
Go to group 4.
Mm-hmm.
And yep, you'll be able to.
Yeah.
Yep. So
I'll be right back. Excellent. Does everyone have someone from their room that would be willing to just share? I would love to hear from a task force member that was in the room if possible, but if we hear no voices and we need to move on, the staff person would be very welcome to share as well. So let me quick share my screen, and we're going to start with group 1. So who is willing to share what was going on in your discussions?
Bob, I don't know if that'd be you, but that was that was majority of the breakout was you.
Gee, I hope not for your sake.
That's all right.
Let me make these notes look a little bit larger here. What I'm going to do is give you a couple of very quick thoughts as we wrote them down. This is not necessarily a prioritization of them. We wanted to make sure that the task force can be a tool and a resource for the commission so that the BEAD program can be quickly and efficiently implemented. Results going to the legislature can be clearly written so that they understand it. We want to make sure that that you understand and that BEAD does not necessarily cover all locations in the state. There will still be some needing broadband, and we would hope that this can be an advocacy for additional funding after BEAD, post BEAD. I hope we can ensure that the straggler locations are accounted for and that there is evidence for the need for post-BEAD funding, and support is available perhaps in funding and perhaps in other ways with the UW extension. We want to make sure that all constituencies in the state are represented in the deployment, high cost, tribal, low income, and make sure that the state has an improved workforce and job outcome as a result of this program. Finally, providers, are concerned, not only providers, but people of the state are concerned that there should be a replacement to the ACP. this may have to be a state program because it does not look as if the feds are going to do this, and it's not clear to me that Chairman Carr at the FCC is. We had one more statement being developed on artificial intelligence, and I did not get that because we ended too quickly.
Do you know what you wanted it to say? Because I can quick type it.
Yeah, Jessica, that was me,
Yeah.
Barbara. I was the one who kind of just threw in AI as something that I'd like to learn more about and its impact on broadband, because we know that that's going to be the next iteration or generation of innovation and in manufacturing and all of the industries that affect our state.
Thank you. Any clarifications? Does anyone need any clarifications on what you just heard and what you're seeing on the screen? Okay, group 2, you have your volunteer. I know who was in that room. I could also volunteer someone, but I don't like to do that.
We did not establish a volunteer and talked up to the very last second.
We have, is someone willing? Marta, Josh, Jose, Chad, Angie.
I'll talk.
Okay,
It's okay.
thank you.
I mean, this group has been in service for a while now, so we kind of joked about what haven't we focused on. We've covered lots of areas of broadband development, and we talked about how we have been kind of government facing in a lot of our recommendations, legislators, municipalities, and wondering if we need to turn a little more focus on the public when it comes to adoption and things like that. What kind of resources and things can we put together for the public? Paying attention to projects that are on the way to be developed, also as an access point for people. Here's where broadband is coming. Continuing to remove barriers for construction so that we can keep all of the projects moving forward, and being ready to just paying attention to what is happening within legislative realms to pivot if we need to.
Awesome.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
Well, I really appreciate you volunteering to do that. Does anyone also need any clarifications on anything that's up here or something you want to add on to it? Hearing none, I will go to group 3. Anyone here willing to speak? Share what your go ahead. I heard someone.
I can. We started with the conversation about the timeline before anything regarding the BEAD application process. So just understanding how at least three application rounds might contribute to a lot of what happens this year. But certainly making sure that the funding gets out the door and allocated properly, of course, is highest of concern. Knowing that the ISPs going through this process it's going to be a huge focal point for them this year. But when you're thinking about what needs to be communicated out, the legislators need to understand that. Again, it was said in group 1, there are going to be areas of concern that don't get fiber priority, and there will need to be additional funding for that work. But the communities that start to see themselves not included in that first round and wondering what are the next steps, I think it needs to be clarified what needs to happen next. And so where are the resources? What is the technical assistance? Where is additional financing going to come from? So just making sure that that's communicated.
Great. Does anyone need any clarifications on anything that's up here or anything Brittany just said? All right. last but definitely not least, as you can see from the prolific set of words on this slide, is Group 4. Is there someone from Group 4 willing to speak to what's on here?
I can take this one, Jessica. This
Excellent.
is Chris.
Thanks.
So we started talking about affordability and recognizing that some of those early programs have sunset and that there's some potential need for us to look at subsidies and other things to make sure people can afford broadband services. We talked about that considerably. We did talk about the change in administrations, and as broadband funding is rolled out, making sure we're keeping our ear to the ground about any potential changes that could come with that funding, et cetera. Looking at gaps in funding, what happens if we don't have the ISPs bid in certain areas? How can we help fill those sort of black holes where we don't have an interest in expanding broadband? And then making sure we're focused on some targeted groups, meaning high needs groups, special needs groups. In the past, we've talked a lot about seniors. We've had representation from the AARP here to talk to us about seniors' use of broadband, but also let's look at other areas, whether that's youth, people below certain income levels, disabled folks. How can we help move the needle with their access to broadband as well? And feel free to jump in, others in the group, if I missed anything.
I guess I'd just like to add, we kind of ran out of time, so I didn't get to throw my 2 cents worth in regarding this and, talking about affordability and adoption and then, stretching out the BEAD funding, a lot of that, and based on kind of our experience with some other federal funding programs, is just efficiencies. And if there's a lot of regulatory red tape and all that associated with this funding, it doesn't go to broadband deployment and keeping stuff affordable. For example, our program or our USDA loan we've been working on now, this project's been delayed for almost a year and a half now, and has cost us over $400,000, and we still have yet to put a foot of fiber in the ground with that. So if there's ways to make that more efficient process to get these projects going, it will help on these items. And I know we've been trying to work with some of the local tribes too, where we've had projects that would have provided service already for their communities, and the hoops to get approval to construct on those lands we still haven't been able to get that completed. So it's just I guess a couple hurdles that we've dealt with.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Brett. Does anyone need any clarification about Group 4's answers? So we have one more quick round for you. And now we want you to focus on that second goal. Group 4 was getting so prolific that I created a new slide for them so that in case they needed to have a spillover space. But we want you now to focus on this second column, which says what strengths do we already have that can help us make progress on these goals. What I'd love for you to do is think about your strengths, your organization strengths, the strengths you heard about in the room today, or the things that you just happen to know that we already have available to us. And so I'm going to stop sharing, and you can go back in your breakout rooms and discuss that. And do that, of course, because I have in the table, please do that for each of the things you brought up where it makes sense to.
Yeah, there goes everybody. Doing good on time, Jessica.
Good.
What you want?
Second one. View. Whiteboard. More.
I think that this strengths list is something that we can continue to add to as we think of more, but this will just get it started.
Should be coming out soon, so don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. Maybe next time.
We could just get under that 3 o'clock mark or hit it exactly,
Yeah,
which is good. Told you it'd be okay.
I'm a little concerned. Group 4 was so prolific with their first one, but now they do have something over in the strengths. We can keep building on this.
All right, everybody should be coming back in the next 10 seconds.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the timing's ending up perfect.
I see a lot of smiles on people's faces. It must be good discussion.
I hope so. Okay. Well, second verse, same as the first. Just I think we need to be as brief as we can when we give these updates, because I think we are starting to get close to our time. Mark will let us know if we're if we're going over. So from group 1, who is willing to you have an anonymous walrus who is still typing, so let them type, but is there somebody willing to share what they came up with?
I think we had one statement to start off saying that the task force does have a lot of these skills on it in the wide range of people who are its members.
Mm-hmm. Great.
That's brief.
One thing I said, as you all still in your rooms, is that this is just the start. We can continue to think about the strengths we already have, that we can draw on for addressing some of the goals that we have. So, does anyone else want to say anything about group one? All right, group two, is there someone willing to share what your conversation was about strengths?
I'm staff, but I'll just jump in quick because our conversation was quick. We talked about provider relationships with local counties, towns, villages, and cities as being really effective for permitting, and that a lot of providers have past success. The broadband office can be a resource to connect and shine a brighter light on issues when there's a delay and maybe elevate them when need to be. We talked about ECB and PBS as being kind of experts at outreach and communications with Wisconsin residents, and that's a way to leverage kind of a voice to a focus on the public. And we talked about UW Extension's Connecting Aging Communities program from a few years ago and how that was very effective for adoption.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to move right into group three. Is anyone willing to speak on what your discussion was like?
I'll speak up again, and just try to be brief. It was mentioned that past task force reports asked for the building blocks of communication to be built. And this is a great moment where those are, and a couple of key organizations, Extension being one, but it's funded by the PSE to do this work. So it's really the brainchild of the PSE to do this. It really makes things the looking forward still, we know that support and technical assistance is still going to need to be there. And just a note that we use the task force report a lot, but maybe there's more live advocacy that some task force members can do on these issues.
Excellent. Thank you. How about group four?
So this is Chris again. Excuse me. We spent the first initial part of our time talking about Brent's comment about the cost, the efficiency of projects. And we do believe we probably have the right people at the table to discuss that. And that's something we probably should look at in 2025. How can we make the process as efficient as possible in the areas we can impact within the state of Wisconsin? We definitely have a lot of experience in this group that we can pull from. One of the things we probably need to do a better job of is understanding what experiences outside of the things we talked about in our introductions do people bring to the table that we could also leverage. And again, we wrapped up by talking about the red tape and the need to do what we can at the state level to remove that from the process to ensure as many dollars as possible are actually going into the ground in the form of broadband.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So there's already been so much done. We've said that a couple of times today. Thank you all so much for your time and your participation in this. I think that the thinking about the strengths in this way, we can continue to add to this as we firm up some of the goals that we might have for 2025. We can kind of take a more pointed look at the strengths and the assets that we already have. Chris, Mark, did you have anything or Alyssa, did you have anything you wanted to add before we move on, or do you want to just move on?
We can just move on to Chris.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time today. It's good to see so many friendly faces back talking about something that's important to all of us. Our next meeting is going to be on February 19th. We're working on that being an in-person meeting and looking for a location. We've kicked around Stevens Point, Madison, certainly provide feedback, but the PSC team is looking for options for us to meet in person. I don't think we've done that since October of 22. And with that, unless there's any other business for the group, we can adjourn our meeting for today. Thank you for your time.